And welcome into week 7 edition of the Old Souls Football Podcast. Stephen and Neil here with another episode. I think this is like our 33rd episode since we started this year. So
Dang,
we are
good.
making some good progress uh, on this. So thanks for everyone that's listening to this tonight. Uh, Starting out, because we cut right to it every time. First topic. Had 2 big trades happen this weekend. Or this week, really. Amari Cooper traded to the Bills. And then Davante Adams traded to the Jets. What is the bigger impact for each team? Is Cooper more impactful for the Bills, or is Davante Adams more impactful for the Jets? What's your take on that?
Cooper's had a tough season so far this year. Well, of course, I mean, who wouldn't in that offense? So you do have to take that with a grain of salt. But obviously, Buffalo is in a bigger position to make hay this year. They are 2.5 games basically. Well, I guess they're not in front of Miami. Well, they are. They're basically 2 games in front of Miami.
Yep.
Miami's still, until they get Tua back, still reeling. The Jets are, who I'll talk about in a second, are the 2.5 games behind, and obviously New England was never going to threaten. So it does feel like Cooper being added to that Bills offense does give them a veteran presence that they probably were lacking. It's also funny too. Somebody noticed he's 31 and he's never been a free agent in the NFL, which is wild. And he's played on 4 different teams.
He was a very, very high pedigree receiver, like one of the best prospects we saw in a long time. Top 10 pick. Kind of
I
an
almost
underachieving.
he was on the Raiders.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, he was kind of a hot and cold player. Like with the Raiders, it felt like, and for whatever reason, he just like I always felt like him and Carr never connected.
No.
Like he was weird. Like he would have an 8-yard game, and then the following week it was like a 200-yard game.
Yeah.
And like he kind of ran hot and cold in Oakland. He never played in Vegas. This was when they were the Oakland Raiders.
Yes.
And but then like when he got traded to Dallas originally, like he hit the ground running, and just like I felt like his career was taking off, but it's kind of like it's plateaued. Like Amari Cooper has been one of these players that has just been steadily good. Very good.
There.
But I don't necessarily know if he's ever made like a true like game-changing impact. I've always felt like he's a very nice player.
Right.
And a good offense. Like he's a number 1 in a good offense, but like I wouldn't put him up there with like, what we've seen Justin Jefferson do, right?
Yeah, right.
What we've seen from guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown, even like AJ Brown, like those kind of impact players at the position in terms of production and what they bring to there. And all those offenses have shown like levels of elite play too.
Right.
However, I think if there's a team that needed this the most, it was actually the Bills. Like this team, I think, like needed production consistently from an outside X receiver like Amari Cooper can bring, right?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have that. Like Keon Coleman's a nice player, nice talent, but you can't be asking a 2nd-round wide receiver in his rookie season to carry the full load in the passing game like that. Like Dalton Kincaid, same thing. Nice young player, but it's not necessarily he's not a game-changing player. I think Cooper is actually going to make a huge impact for the Bills because he's going to bring like 80% of what Stephon Diggs could bring.
Yes.
And I do think the Bills are doing a lot of the little things better than they ever have done since Josh Allen's been in town. Like they're running the ball a lot better.
Right.
Than they have. So I actually think the Cooper trade is the more impactful trade.
The more interesting trade.
Yeah. it's in my opinion, the more interesting trade is the Jets trade. Right?
Yes.
Number one, it's the Jets.
Yeah.
We're gonna the national media is gonna talk about them.
Here last week we said, yeah, it'll probably be the last time we talk about the Jets.
They lost, and we still are talking about them because of
Yeah.
this. And I get you could maybe argue that, like, yes, just because Rodgers and Adams have the rapport, yeah, absolutely. Like Adams could come in and go scorched earth. However, I actually don't. I don't know if this is gonna fix the actual problem.
I don't think. I think it's like
I think,
rearranging the decks on the Titanic,
and I thought
or
about this.
rearranging the deck chairs, I should say.
I thought about this because you've been like his most staunch defender, and it seems like rightfully so. It's really coming to bear that way. But Matt LaFleur, I don't think gets enough credit for what he did when he got to Green Bay in terms of getting that offense back
Yeah.
to where they were a top 5 unit in the league.
Do you know, somebody put this out there the other day, and I was kind of like, wow, yeah, that's true. I forgot about that. In 2018, people were talking about Rodgers possibly being washed already.
Yeah.
And LaFleur saved him.
In 2019, he wasn't awesome. Like they
wasn't
were a
awesome,
13-win
no.
team, but Rodgers was not like an all-pro level quarterback.
Yeah, there were people talking about, oh, like until the Vikings in 2022 came, they were like, oh, this is a very unimpressive, one of the more unimpressive 13-win teams of all time.
Yeah, and then but in 2020, it was like the MVP years of 2020,
Yes.
2021.
21, yep.
Where Rodgers was like breaking records in terms of efficiency, right? He was like, especially the 2020 season was like an all-time great season from an MVP quarterback. Like it's up there with like 2011 Rodgers, 2004 Peyton Manning, like those kind of years. 2007 Brady, like in the modern passing game era, I would say. My thing though is like just because like Davante Adams, obviously great rapport with Rodgers, gonna get a ton of targets. Like fantasy football, absolutely, we're talking huge impact here. Like if you have Davante Adams in fantasy leagues, you're to the moon because he's gonna get like 15 targets a game now.
Yeah.
But like, does this actually help the Jets short term? Because obviously it does not help them long term.
No.
It actually, to me, like will stunt the growth of Garrett Wilson.
Yeah.
Potentially for the rest of his Jets career, because like this basically was like Garrett Wilson ain't enough. And like if I'm a young player, like you can't think that Garrett Wilson's looking at this going like, man, Rodgers has full confidence in me.
And if I'm Mike Williams, I just want totally out of the situation.
Yeah, I just want to like basically like, okay, he gave up on me. And then Breece Hall, like and Braylon Allen, like, he's not going to use this in the pass game. Like, go back and look at the interception. As much as he wants to blame Mike Williams for that pick on Monday Night Football, like Breece Hall's wide open underneath on 3rd and 10. Just pick up the yards, get the first down. And that's always my issue. The real issue with the Jets offense, yes, it's better than Zach Wilson. Like they have made strides offensively. They are better this year than they were last year.
Yeah.
But they are not going to be a great team because the way Aaron Rodgers plays. And they don't play with any rhythm. They don't play. It's almost like everything feels like disjointed. And just because Davante
feels
Adams
like 2018 Packers stuff.
Yeah. 2018 Packers, but like I think they do have a better defense.
Yeah.
But Rodgers is also 40 now, coming off a torn Achilles. So I don't think this necessarily, like, I'm not ready to just say, like, okay, put the Jets back in the contention fight.
No,
like, number one, they were never there in the first place.
In fact, I'm rooting harder against them now.
I mean, it's going to be kind of neat to see, like, Lazard and Adams and Rodgers play together again. As a Packer fan, it's kind of neat, I guess. Yeah. But I think Cooper, that's the underrated trade of this week. Like I think that could potentially change the dynamic of the entire AFC because I think that's what they were missing, in my opinion. Like they can run the ball, they can play defense, they do a lot of things well, but they really didn't have, to me, like,
what did they give up for Cooper again?
The Bills?
Yeah,
I'm not sure. Like maybe it was it like a 4th,
like a mid-round,
something like that. Okay. One day after the Bills traded a 2025 third-round pick and a 2026 seventh-rounder in exchange for the wideout and a 2025 sixth-round pick. So they basically swapped a
A
sixth
seventh
and
and
a
a third.
third,
Yeah.
and they also gave up a seventh.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
And this is in the middle of their transition. This is the perfect type of piece you add in a transition. It's not gonna you give up a mid-round pick, so it's not debilitating your future, and you're still bringing up all the young guys that they have. I think it's a great trade for them.
and I think Amari Cooper's, I think his contract, his cap hit's 800,000.
Oh man, yeah,
So, like, I think just from so Davante Adams cap hit, because I think like the Browns and the Cowboys like paid a lot of that up front, or I guess the cap hit went to the Browns. I'm not a cap expert, so I don't want to pretend like I know that stuff.
yeah,
But Davante, I mean, he's got 3 more years on his deal. He's 32. His cap number this year is only 4 million, but next year is 39 and 30. The next 2 years, 39 million per. And there's not that much dead money, so the Jets could theoretically get out of it.
right.
So most of the guarantees, it looks like the Vegas has already kind of picked that up. So I don't think but like I said, I think my main argument against the Adams trade is I think long term it does nothing to help the Jets, who have a
No.
young core of players. Like that's the one thing you could have always stated that the Jets did have, is like they did do well in the 2022 draft. Like they actually got some pieces together.
Mm-hmm.
And
Douglas is not a bad drafter. It's just
they couldn't get quarterback right, and they're just kind of stuck in limbo. But I'm worried now that like Wilson and Hall, I just don't know if their confidence is going to be there. And Rodgers kind of
running the show.
Yeah, because he's got his guy now. Like I don't know. But yeah, so we both agree on Cooper. Next topic on the slate, the Cowboys. And it's a fun, so we started with the Jets and the Cowboys. We're basically
So we're first take.
Yeah. So but I think the Cowboys are one of the most interesting teams because they are 3-0 on the road. They're 0-3 at home. They enter their bye week at 3-3. And they've been not only, like, I would say they haven't only been beat at home 3 times. They've been basically dominated at home 3 times against good teams. Where do we see the Cowboys season going? Like, where do they stack up in the NFC East? Is it time to raise the panic alarm? Like, do we fire McCarthy? Where are we going with this team? So I don't know what to make of them.
I really don't either. I kind of hope you did. I don't know if they know what to do.
I think the main thing you have to think about with the Cowboys is this. To me, I said this back in the spring, and this has been my take all along, and really ever since the last playoff failure of Dak Prescott back in January against the Packers. He's not good enough to take a mediocre team and make it good. Dak Prescott, it sounds harsh because he puts up good numbers, but he's a game manager. He is effectively what people accuse Brock Purdy of being.
Yeah.
Where, like, to me, Brock Purdy's actually lifting up a team that's not that good this year.
Yeah.
In the 49ers.
He's starting to raise his...
He's doing something I think that Dak Prescott's never done. Dak Prescott he's like a team chameleon. So like if the team sucks, he'll suck with them.
Yeah.
If the team is good, like, and they have all the pieces around them, like they'll win regular season games, but they'll fail in the playoffs because eventually the cream rises to the top, right? In January. Right. This is where I always I know they couldn't probably pull it off because Atlanta was so high on Penix, but that would have been the opportunity to draft a quarterback, because after the first 6 weeks of the season, you're not winning a Super Bowl with that guy. I
No,
don't even think you're getting to an NFC title game with him.
no,
Like
and I predicted them to go to the NFC title.
as much as we give crap to the Giants about Daniel Jones, who's definitely worse than Dak Prescott. But at least the Giants are probably going to get out of that after this year, maybe next year at the latest. But Dallas, they're just bought into this. This team actually might be I think we might have found NFL purgatory.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think Dak is good enough to keep them at like 6 wins,
Yeah.
at worst. But the best is what they could have had last year, where they literally have a Hall of Fame defensive player.
Yeah.
In Michael Parsons, and they have pieces around him that have been pretty good. But as guys get older, especially on the offensive line and the defensive line, things are starting to deteriorate. The Cowboys can't spend any money because they have everything tied up in 3 players. It's just kind of, I think they are. I'm not going to say the season's over because this is going to be a team that is playing for a playoff spot in week 17.
Yeah, they still will be.
If you want a comparison to an AFC team, it's like them and the Steelers are the same franchise right now. That's where I feel like they are. They just Dak's better than what the Steelers have, but the Steelers are like the opposite. They have the team,
yeah,
but they don't have the quarterback. And the Cowboys have like a decent quarterback, but they don't have a great team. But I don't see a trajectory that's going down where they need to get to.
Yeah,
to rebuild, but I don't see it ever getting to the point where they can actually realistically contend. I could name like 6 other teams that I think have a better shot than
much better
at getting to the Super Bowl.
They might make the playoffs, but I don't see them even getting out of the wild card round. And so, what is the point really of this? Like, you're the Dallas Cowboys. You have an owner is willing to spend whatever it takes to win.
Yep.
And you can't seem to put together a team that can win in January. And now they're struggling to win in October.
Yeah, and my main point to finish this topic is this should be like, we joke about the Jets and the fact that was the last time we were going to talk about the Jets this year in the settling for 3, but this needs to be the last time we talk about the Cowboys because they're, to me, like, they're completely, like, I don't want to
know
talk
what
about
they are right now.
They are what they are. It just feels like, and I think as much as a defender as McCarthy as I am, I don't see a direction where he can get them back either. Like, no. I think they will have to go in a different direction at the end of the year.
Yeah.
I think he's a good coach. Like, I think he's better than, I think he's top half of the league, but I don't think he's carrying, and it all kind of, it ends up, I think it's on the foot of Jerry Jones. And the other thing is, like, that's not changing. Like, just like the Panthers, the problem is Tepper, but that's not changing either. So the Panthers are going to stay irrelevant for a while.
Yes.
Last topic is, what did we say the last topic was going to be? It was going to be Tom Brady. So, Brady, I guess to recap a little bit, is now a minority owner in the Raiders.
Yes.
But he is also a current analyst with Fox. So if you read like what Tom Brady's allowed to do.
Here, I pulled it up.
Yeah, so what is he allowed to do?
So the restrictions are this. This is according to the LA Times. Brady can't criticize other teams or game officials, and he can't attend broadcast production meetings that serve as primary means of preparing for games. They don't include it in there, but that means not even just going to the facility. He can't even be on Zoom to meet with the team.
Yeah.
He isn't allowed in the, I just said that. He isn't allowed in the facilities of teams besides the Raiders, except in stadiums when he's calling games, and he can't watch practices.
Yeah, and people that don't understand, so for people that don't like understand like the background of broadcast TV when it comes to sports, typically
a lot
like
of homework that goes into it.
yeah, the best announcers, which you would hope, like the NFL announcers, like the Kevin Harlans, the Kevin Burkharts, uh, Al Michaels, maybe not
Mhm.
anymore, but 5 years ago, like those guys, they're the best of the best. And what do
Mhm.
they call? They call NFL games. Like that is the standard in sports
Yeah.
broadcasting. Like if you ever get to call an NFL game and you're a sportscaster, like that's a dream come true
Mhm.
for anybody that makes it that far. I'm not a sportscaster myself, but I work with a lot of them. And I think you would probably ask most of them, like getting to one of the major leagues is important, but the NFL is
Yeah.
king,
That's the top
right?
dog.
It's the top one because especially if you're on the A team like Brady is, every 4 years now you're going to be calling a Super Bowl. So it's like the ultimate privilege. But the best top, you know, level of this industry, the guys prepare. Like you can see
Yes.
the difference and feel the difference like when they meet with coaches in production meetings and they get that little detail. Like a great example is like when Tony Romo, like as much criticism as he gets super excited about the Chiefs. Well, number one, he meets with the Chiefs a lot because they call a lot of Chiefs games. Like that's not
Yeah.
his fault. But Andy Reid probably gives him a lot of information about gives him opinions on players, like
Yes.
football philosophy, things like that, like what he looks for in players and
It,
play calling and
you
things
would
like that.
love. You would die.
Yeah.
Oh, there's the baby. You would die if you were a football meathead to be a fly on the wall in one of these
Yeah.
meetings.
Yeah. Like, because in most of these cases, like, this is not like, because like injury stuff, like, it's kind of agreed to that the team's not like the broadcast team's not going to go report that before the game, right? It's not like they're beat reporters. The
Mhm.
stuff's not necessarily disclosed. So they get a lot of like private information, like about the game plan a lot of the time. Like
Mhm.
they might even say, yeah, we're working on a flea flicker. You're going to see it sometime in the game.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of
You're gonna see it in
trusted.
practice on Friday.
Like, yeah, you're gonna see it. Like, you're gonna watch practice. You're gonna watch us working on a trick play that we might use at a really important moment. Like, there was a chance that Jim Nance and Phil Simms watched Sean Payton's special teams unit practice the
Yeah.
surprise onside kick for the Super Bowl, and like if Brady was calling a game like that same game for CBS and the Raiders were playing the Saints instead of the Colts, like he would go and tell the head coach of the Raiders, like, "Oh yeah, they got a surprise onside." So he's obviously not allowed to do that. There's a conflict of interest,
Right.
and we're not saying like we're not criticizing Brady for wanting to be a minority owner, but in our opinion, it's complete BS that this
Yeah.
dude is allowed to call games, and they supplanted Greg Olson, who was really good at his job, in my opinion.
Mhm.
Uh, and he still gets to own a piece of the Raiders. Like he gets to basically have his cake and eat it too. And like just to put it shortly, and we can move on to the next topic. And you can get your thoughts on it too. But I think it's complete BS that they let him do that.
Yeah, no, it is. And as you said, Greg Olson was the victim in this because he's very good at his job. And not only that one of the things that we mentioned that Brady can't do, he can't criticize teams. He can't criticize officials. So I mean, it's really unfortunate that Fox was so gung ho about getting him. Oh, we have a fan. Do you know this person?
No, I don't think so. But
That's
looks like
even better.
Adams is getting restructured in the offseason. So yeah, I think so. I think something of what I said. It looks like there's not that much dead money, so he's definitely going to get a new deal. But we thank you for clarifying that for us.
That's awesome. All
Yeah,
right. But yeah,
I saw
no,
we had comments, so I wanted to show them.
I just it's very unfortunate really that it'd be one thing if he worked in the studio and he just gave his opinions, or not give his opinions, but he just broke down X's and O's. But this is a guy that he's going to be there at every big game Fox does, and
Yeah. It's
I don't
just
know.
it's just BS that he gets to do it. Like,
Yeah,
I think, like, there was kind of a slow news week outside of the trade, so we kinda wanted to throw that in there.
yeah.
Uh, but
And we
let's
haven't.
go.
It's part of the business, and we haven't really discussed much beyond the actual football this year. But that's part of it.
Yeah, and honestly, like you mentioned, like, I've done some college level work, before. Like, so I've done, like, set-in production meetings with coaches, and, like, if you got to do an NFL one, like, I'd imagine that'd be, like, one of the coolest things you could ever do is, like,
Yeah.
you're getting to talk, X's and O's with Andy Reid. That'd be cool as shit. Uh, anyway, week 7, can you believe we're already, like, almost halfway through the season?
I know. It's
So,
going.
yeah, it's crazy, and I think what I was gonna suggest too is, like, when we get to, like, week 10, we'll have, like, mid-season awards. I think that might be something cool that we do.
Yeah, we could do
Uh,
something like that.
yeah. So, Saints hosting the Denver Broncos. A lot of people would probably not find this game very interesting. I do, and you probably know the reason why I would find this game interesting.
Rookie quarterbacks going head to head.
Oh, come on, it's a revenge game.
Oh yes, it's Sean Payton going back to New
Duh.
Orleans. Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
right.
I can't believe they put this on Thursday night. But granted, these teams suck, so it's
Yeah,
like, I guess it's probably good that they put it on because it should be a standalone game because it is a
yes.
revenge game. But these, like,
This is
especially
the
if it's
best time
Spencer
they could put
Rattler,
it in.
yeah, it might not be like the most watchable football. And if you want to put bad football on Thursday night, go ahead because it's always
Yeah,
bad. Outside of 2 weeks ago, that was great. Uh, what was it?
the Bucks and the
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 Bucks
Falcons.
Falcons game was actually awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah, who was last week?
Uh, who was last
I
week?
can't even remember who was last week.
Oh, we had our own game, so I missed it. Oh, it was San
49ers
Francisco.
Seahawks,
Yeah,
that was kind of but I think what we figured that was gonna be a bigger blowout than people expected, and it
yeah,
was. The 49ers controlled that entire game.
they
But,
did.
anyway, in this game, uh, do you know, have you looked at the lines at all?
Yeah, it's 2.5 to the Broncos right now.
Yeah, and that surprised me a little bit, um, because I didn't think that the Broncos were a team that would get, you know, they would be road favorites against anybody. Like,
Yes,
I get
especially
it.
a team that is relatively close to them in the standings.
This Broncos team is a team that is, like, they're not as good as their record indicates. They're 3-3, but, like, and you go and, like, watch that Chargers game, you look at the final score, it's 23-16, it wasn't that close.
No.
Um, the thing about the Broncos that I don't like is they start really slow.
Yes.
They are
Very.
absolutely one of the worst teams, I wanna say, in football in the first quarter.
I feel like the Bucks game was the only game that they actually started out pretty fast.
Yeah. I think they did unlock something, though. Bo Nix is gonna have to use his legs for his rookie season,
Yeah.
and I think that's kinda like his little handicap right now where he can't, like, I don't think he has the and it might be that just the weapons aren't good enough. There's some of that. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on. There's not a ton of talent on this Broncos team. It is pretty barren. But I think he's gonna have to use his legs. His rookie season's reminding me a lot of Daniel Jones in 2019.
Yeah.
Like, Bo
That's a good
Nix is an
comparison.
underrated athlete. Like, you actually watch him play, like, dude can run the ball. Like,
Yeah.
he's pretty large. Uh, that being said, like, I have my apprehensions on the Broncos. Like, their defense has impressed, but we want to see Sertan. Like, is he out? How long is he out for, or is he gonna be out?
Um, well, he's just on the injury report, of course, but that doesn't ever give you enough.
He had a concussion on Sunday, so he's probably not gonna play on Thursday.
Yeah, he's definitely not going to play.
Yeah, they had a late game Sunday too, so, like, they played in the late window, obviously being playing at home. So, I don't think Sertan will play. But on the flip side, we have bigger quarterback concerns, I think, with the Saints because 'cause we're probably
No.
looking at Spencer Rattler again, and,
Mhm.
the one thing that shocked me about the Saints last week was how bad their defense was.
I know. And see, that was the thing that I said that would keep them in the game.
Yeah, they give up like, I don't care how bad of a week you have, if you give up 51 points in a football game, like, you don't have a good defense at that point.
Yeah.
And, Baker Mayfield averaged 9 per attempt. They gave up 277 yards rushing last week. Like, and remember, like, Rachaad White didn't even play in that game for Tampa. That was Bucky Irving and mostly Sean Tucker, like a third string running back. So I don't know what to make of this game simply because, like, I don't like the Saints at home. And really against anybody. My main question is just like, I think that your opinion on this game should basically be like, do you think Bo Nix can start a game fast enough to where the Broncos win this game? Or does he struggle enough where the Saints can keep it close and then you just let the home bounce go your way and the Saints escape with a victory?
The Saints might be bad enough that Bo Nix and the Broncos offense can start slow
Yeah.
and still win this game.
And and a lot of people made the point like Nix did pick it up in the second half last week against a pretty tough Chargers team.
Mhm.
So maybe that confidence will translate in to this game. And that's, I think, like, I don't love picking a rookie quarterback that hasn't shown a lot uh, on the road on a short week. But I
Mhm.
hate the Saints in this game. And this is a tough one. I'm going to take the Broncos in a low scoring affair, 20-17.
That was actually exactly what I was gonna say. I
Wow.
think it'll be the exact same score.
Yeah. It's like we talk a lot of football together or something.
Yeah, we've known each other a while.
Yeah, but that's a gross game otherwise. Like, if that were on a Sunday at 1 o'clock, I probably wouldn't watch
I
it.
wouldn't even notice it was on. Oh,
This is an
talk
island game
about
too, by
gross
the way.
game.
The back-to-back island games, we get the Broncos, Saints, and the Pats and the Jags. Okay, I'm gonna put it bluntly here. I'm excited to watch this game because I think Drake May showed a few signs of being pretty good last
Hold
week.
on. He had an MRI today.
So he's
After
probably not
practice.
gonna we're back to Brissett maybe?
Yeah, I think so.
What happened?
I don't know. I think something happened at practice, and Ben Volen, the Patriots, one of their beat guys, said that he was getting an MRI. So that's not good.
On
Um,
what?
I'm
They
just
said
about to
him
pull his Twitter.
if
I'm
it's his
told Drake
knees.
May went for an MRI after practice today. Something to watch this week. So on the injury report, Drake May had a knee. That's not good.
Oh, this is
Even if that's a sprained knee, he's not.
yeah. Okay, well, I'll say this. If Drake May plays, I think the Jags win in a close game. If Jacoby Brissett plays, I think the Pats are the worst team in football. I'll take the Jags by 10. So I'll take Jags 24-10 or 24-14 if it's Brissett. I'll take Jags 24-21 if it's Drake May. Is that
Yeah,
fair?
I'd probably agree with either of those. May did impress me last week. He's really playing by, as we talked about last week, he's playing behind the 8 ball with the team that he has. So I feel like that, I was, because I was on the Drake May bandwagon, I was pretty happy with the way he played. But it's hard for rookies to string together good performances, even so.
And we just talked
Um,
about Bo Nix that
yeah,
way. Like,
yeah, we just talked about Bo Nix.
and that actually is what made Caleb, last couple weeks and Jaden Daniels all season so
Yes,
special in a way because like they've been stringing
they
it
don't
together.
look like rookies. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll probably go with either of those scores, despite the fact that the
Yeah.
Jaguars are DOA right now.
The biggest question I think is if Jacksonville wins this game, which I think we both agree that they should win this game. I mean, if they don't, then we know Doug Peterson's fired if
Yes,
they lose this game.
100%. And
But
if they win, they're just buying time.
Yeah, then they get the Packers and the Eagles in the they get Packers, Eagles, Vikings, Lions, Texans as their next 5. So I'm still pretty confident that their season is all but over. I mean, like if they win this week, they're 2-5. Uh, even if you win 2 of the following of those next 5, I mean, think about it. You're still what 4-8 going
Yep.
into week 13. So yeah, it's gonna be so difficult for this team to get back in it. The main question is if Jacksonville wins this game, I think Dougie Peterson gets another week because I don't see a coach getting fired after a win like that. But if they lose, he's done. Like there's
Yes.
no way he's coaching next week. The following week against Green Bay.
100%.
Yep. And we'll talk a little bit about it. We'll wait to talk about Jacksonville when they fire Peterson because I
Yes.
think that'll happen at some point.
It's inevitable.
And then we'll talk about where they go from here because they have Trevor Lawrence under contract. So like that should be a pretty attractive job given the talent that he has. He just hasn't put it all together yet. Next game, Seahawks, Falcons. At the beginning of the year, I would look at this matchup and be kind of like, this is another gross matchup, but I think it's actually pretty intriguing. 2 teams like heading in different directions. So the Seattle has lost 3 straight, like we thought would happen.
Yes.
And Atlanta, we didn't see this necessarily happening. Atlanta's kind of on a surge. They won their last 3, granted, against their own division, which is not that great.
Yeah.
Tampa win was good. Does Atlanta keep it rolling against Seattle, or does Seattle finally stop the bleeding here?
I feel like Atlanta is going to keep it rolling. I think Seattle is. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. It should be a fun game if you're watching for red zone or fantasy purposes or anything like that. Seattle seems to be bleeding right now, and they're not seemingly able to stop the bleeding. We thought, especially we were kind of complimenting how well their defense is playing early on, and obviously based on the quarterbacks they were playing, that was a lot of the reason, but that has gone way out the window. They've allowed 42, 29, and 36 points in their last 3 weeks. Yep. So a team like Atlanta that seems to be hitting their stride offensively, it seems like a recipe for disaster for them.
Yeah. I actually disagree with, I think, the outcome of the game. Like now your analysis on kind of the way things have gone for Seattle and the way Atlanta's surging. But I think like in my years of watching the NFL, when I see a team surging like Atlanta has and a team falling flat like Seattle has the last 3 weeks, but I don't necessarily think there's a huge talent gap between each roster.
Yeah.
My gut's telling me to pick the team that's falling because they're desperate. Yep, exactly. And I think Atlanta might be feeling themselves a little bit. They had a big, their margin of victory was pretty impressive against Carolina, but they were not good in that game. Like they could have lost that game.
No, yeah, exactly.
Not good. I think Seattle's going to take this in a close game. I'm going to give it pretty high scoring. I think both teams are going to put up some points here. 31-28 for the Seahawks.
I'm going to go 30. Well, I'll say 37-30 Atlanta.
Okay. Yeah, so we both have a lot of
expectation points.
We both have a lot of points scoring this game, and
handful starters out on Seattle's defense. I would like to wait for the injury report. That's probably also a reason for Seattle's demise lately. They've allowed 400. They almost allowed 500 yards of offense last week to San Francisco, which, I mean, it is San Francisco.
And I think the Giants were able to move it on them without Neighbors.
Yeah, true.
Mm-hmm. So my main thing with I think Atlanta is I think my take is more about Atlanta. I don't see them being a great team yet. And I think they have their own defensive issues. Like I think this game is just going to be high scoring in general. Like I think Atlanta's super talented offensively. I wouldn't dispute that. They better be with the amount of draft capital they've thrown into that defense or that offense. But to me, I always say that this league tends to regress to the mean, and the teams that know how to break that trend are the great teams, right? Or the really, really bad teams. So like a team like Kansas City would go in on they'd win this game at home, but I don't necessarily think Atlanta is that kind of team just yet. Next game, Tennessee Buffalo. We can keep this pretty quick, right?
Yeah.
I think we're taking Buffalo. I'm taking it pretty big. I think is Will Levis, is he the worst starting quarterback in the NFL right now?
He's the funniest.
I guess because Rattler's probably 32nd right now, but every week with this guy, it's just it's getting worse. That's the thing that's discouraging about the Titans is that his career with them started out so promising. Like he had that huge, was it 3-4 touchdown game against I want to say it was Atlanta last year, which I just said that Atlanta's defense is terrible, which is true. Well, it was last year at least.
Yeah.
It's better this year, I should say, because AJ Terrell and Jesse Bates are a lot better. But
yes,
they're healthy on defense this year, but they're still giving up points. Tennessee though is just god awful, and you look at what Levis has done this year, turning the ball over, taking a lot of sacks. This is just a meat grinder game for them. They're going to go in. Buffalo coming off a big win, a bounce back win against the Jets last week. I'm going to take Buffalo pretty big here, 34-10.
Yeah, it's not.
It's going to be the biggest blowout of the week, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be. They're 9-point favorites. I'm going to take the Bills. I'll take them. I'll say 27-7.
27-7. Okay, so we both think this is a big margin right here.
Yeah.
Next game, the Battle of Ohio. The funny thing is, like,
year.
The funny thing though is that like the Bengals, like, I almost like kind of left them for dead, and I think that was premature. I think the road for them to get back in the hunt for the division is even right there. That Ravens game, that's going to haunt them the way that ended.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they had won that game, like, they're sitting right there where they need to be. It's kind of crazy to think about a team that's 2-4, and we say that. The Browns are, I said that Will Levis is the worst starting quarterback in the NFL. That's not true. It's actually Deshaun Watson. I think this team's awful, and I think a lot of it.
I've been seeing. I don't know where he stands like versus each year, but there's something like there's like 566 quarterbacks since like say 2000 when they started tracking EPA per play, basically.
Yeah.
And his EPA per play is the worst of every single one of them. That is I don't really know.
Is it worse than Nathan Peterman?
I don't think he had the amount of snaps.
Okay, so I had to like stat
because guys that
Blake
that had
Bortles
100. Was Blake Bortles ever this bad?
I mean, there were some years, but yeah, I
was thinking about this earlier today. Is there
Zach Wilson had to be really down there
sports wise that you could compare Deshaun Watson to? A guy that had
baseball guys. Like who was the guy for the Orioles? Chris Davis.
Chris Davis, yeah.
Like the guy that like struck out and
but even for the career arc of Deshaun Watson.
Oh yeah, because you had
a great start, and then obviously all the off the field issues that came with it. And then the bottom just totally falling out. Like he looks like an imposter. on an NFL field. I don't know if there's a comparison out there. I don't know if we've ever seen anything like this. He
Yeah.
is Ben Simmons. Actually, it's a fucking great one.
Yeah. But I would even say, like, Watson, I think, had a better start than Ben Simmons did when Ben Simmons was with the Sixers.
Yeah.
Because, like, Deshaun Watson got, like, I mean, they were a half away from getting to the AFC Championship in 2019. And Deshaun
Yeah.
Watson effectively carried those Texans teams. Like, people forget, like, Deshaun Watson was an MVP level quarterback.
Yeah. Even
Uh,
even in 2020 when they were terrible, he was a top 5 quarterback in the NFL that year. It was
and
just
you can't
everybody
say
around him was so bad.
it's so crazy too, because, like, he just is it because he sat out for 2 years, or is it, like, something mental with him? Or, I can't say it's coaching, because, like, I've seen Kevin Stefanski succeed with other quarterbacks. We just saw it with Joe Flacco last year.
Mhm.
So, I agree with you. I mean, with the way Watson's playing, he's the worst quarterback in the NFL right now. He's
Yeah.
worse than Levis for sure.
Yeah.
And that alone, I think Cincinnati, the quarterback, I guess the degree of difference between Burrow and Watson when it comes to difference, I guess, in skill level and productivity at that position, the most important position on the field. I got to take Cincinnati here. I like Cleveland's defense enough. I'm gonna respect them. So I'm gonna say 27-14. I think Cincinnati takes another game. I think it's gonna be a little similar to how their game against the Giants went, but I think Jamar Chase can maybe break off a couple
Yeah,
plays.
I know the Giants obviously are not threatening too many teams offensively, but it was at least somewhat um, good if you're as we were talking about, we want to see the Bengals kind of get their stride going again. Um, it was good to see their defense kind of look competent again,
Yeah.
regardless of who they were playing. I think they win this one. I think they're starting to get their groove back. I'm going to take them 30-10.
Yeah. I think we're both thinking double digits. And what kind of sucks is, like, I feel like if Jameis Winston were starting for the Browns, I think it's a touchdown game.
Yeah.
Like, I think
I
that's how
almost
big of
wonder
an
if
upgrade just
Stefanski
Jameis
doing
Winston
this
is over
as like,
Deshaun.
see, like, look what you left me, or like, look at the guy, like, but why would you like even why would
You
you
can keep
tank your
talking.
career? Like, or why would you hitch your wagon to Deshaun Watson at this point? Like, you're a young guy. You're going to have more years in the NFL. Get out of that, man. Like, even if they fire you, you go to the next interview and you tell the guy, hey, look, I didn't want to play Deshaun Watson. I put in Jameis Winston. They didn't like that because they were paying him 246 million guaranteed, yada, yada, yada. Um, I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that the comment below made, I think, a really great point, where Watson's think about it this way, like, his career, like, when he left Clemson, he was like a media darling in a lot of ways. Like, he had the $1,000,000 smile. Like,
Mhm.
I I remember, like, everybody in this area where I live, like, they love Clemson. Deshaun Watson was like their poster child, like, couldn't do any wrong. And, like, that image of him has completely changed.
Yeah.
He's gross. Like, he's ick. Like, he's
Yeah.
ick. And, like, it's funny, like, the Clemson fans, it's almost like they kind of ignore the
Yeah.
Deshaun Watson stuff, and, like, they're like, "Oh, Trevor Lawrence."
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, they just kinda moved, 'cause Trevor Lawrence at least has a clean image, right?
Yeah.
And, that is a fair point, I think, and maybe Watson's not handling that well. I just
Yeah.
think there has to be more to this. Like, I've never seen a guy be as talented as he was when he was with the Texans just play this poorly. Like Neil mentioned, it's not like he's out of sync like Rodgers was in 2018 versus, like, what he was in 2020. This is, like, historically good football, like, top level DVOA production, things like that, to, like, bottom 5 in EPA per play
Of all time.
of all time. Like this is unprecedented. And the only sport that I can even see this is like a baseball player because that sport is so mental.
Yeah.
Because or if you lose your vision or something, or if you go off like the steroid era, you would see guys like fall off like that. But
Or even like I mean, he hasn't had this drop off in success, but like Rory McIlroy during or like not during
yeah,
major tournaments, like
golfers, and golfers are kind of like that. I mean, Tiger Woods in a way, like
yeah,
after he had
Tiger
this,
actually that's a pretty. But even Tiger came back.
yeah, Tiger came back. I think it's too late. I think it's too late for Deshaun too, and he plays in a sport where you can't come back.
Yes, yeah, you have, yeah,
But I think like Tiger Woods, like he had some injuries, but he also had the scandal with his wife.
the scandal. Yeah, I'd say
So,
actually maybe Tiger is
yeah,
our best comparison, but no one's gonna want. That was 2008. Tiger won the U.S. Open. 2019 when he won the Masters. No one's going to be looking for Deshaun Watson in 6 years.
yeah. And as somebody that has learned a lot about golf, because that's kind of been one of my recent like hobbies that I've grown accustomed to liking a lot. The Masters, like for a major winner, that's definitely the easiest to repeat
Yes.
of any because it's the same course that you've already mastered, no pun
Right.
intended. Versus the U.S. Open, like I always feel like that's way harder to get multiple
Yes.
because you could win Bethpage Black, and the next year you're at Pinehurst.
Yeah.
And they're two completely different courses, and like they play to two different strengths. Like one you might have to be long off the tee, the other one it's all about putting. Or
Yes.
technically all those tournaments are about putting, but
Right.
we're not to get into golf. But I think with what Tiger did is even overstated a little bit of how far he actually had to come back in terms of he was never as poor at golf as Deshaun Watson is right now.
Right. Yeah.
Is what I'm trying to say, I guess. Next game, Texans, Packers. I think this is outside of
game.
It's the second biggest game of the week.
Yeah.
Second biggest NFC North game of the week.
Yeah.
And the Bears don't play this weekend, so that kind of gives it away.
That's why.
The Texans are a team that I think they're good. I think we obviously know that. That's fair. Okay, next game, right? No, I'm just kidding. We know they're good, but like the question with the Texans are how good are they? Because every game up until last week, they win by 3, they win by 4. Their first 4 wins were combined by I want to say like 15 points.
Yeah.
So your average margin of victory was about 3.5 points. That's usually doesn't necessarily correlate to like a team that I'm saying like is Super Bowl bound. Like, but then again, the Chiefs last year were not that team either. Like the Ravens felt more like a Super Bowl team in the regular season where they were blowing teams out. That being said, the Texans have shown an ability to win games. You know what's funny is I think now that I'm looking at like I haven't looked at this. I looked at the NFC's point differential. Okay, the Texans do have a positive point differential after last week. They're only +8, which is kind of crazy for a team that's 5-1.
Yeah.
To be that mediocre, because like a +8 team after 6 weeks.
2022 Vikings territory.
Yeah. I think the big difference in this game is Nico Collins being out.
Yeah.
Because I think that would have presented a challenge for the Packers defensively, because Nixon and Jair on the field, like at each corner, like they're really one of the best corner tandems in the league right now. Like everyone I think everyone overrates Jair a little bit and is actually underrating Keyshawn Nixon and his ability and what he's done as a lockdown defensive back. The real liability has been Stokes, right?
Yeah.
Stokes, the first round pick from 2021, has been pretty poor ever since his rookie year. Like he was pretty mediocre, and then he's had some injuries, and he just hasn't been the same player since. I don't know if the Texans have necessarily the firepower that could take advantage of that right now.
Hmm.
They're still a well-coached team, and I think that alone will make this a really hard game for Green Bay. But what I saw from the Packers last week is an offense that can win however they want.
Yeah, it was good to see Jordan Love. Like that was his first complete beginning to end game
Yep.
where he looked like himself from November, December last year.
And I've said this about the Packers all year, if Jordan Love protects the football, he can play like that.
Yeah.
That's like he is arguably the best quarterback in the entire league when he plays when he does that. Now
Mhm.
some of his production came off of kind of like YOLO balls. Like the touchdown to Dobbs was just stupid. He just threw it up and
Yeah.
Dobbs caught it, right? But if Love can keep that efficiency and don't give up easy points, I think this Packers team can beat anybody. It's mostly just how do you think Love competes against this Texans defense that has been, pretty good this year. I'm gonna take the Packers. I'm not comfortable in this game. I would stay away from this. Like if I were looking to bet, I'm gonna take the Packers close game, 24-21. Like so that's basically me not giving a take.
Yeah, I'm gonna go a little bit more. I think it's similar score for not similar, same score for Houston. I'm gonna take Green Bay 28-21. Um yeah, we just have to see a little bit more out of Houston. I know that as we just said they're 5-1, but that plus 8 point differential
Yeah.
is concerning. And the defense has been, of course, very tough this year.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know. There's some things they need to work on. Um, especially specifically actually looking at their stats here, they're struggling in the red zone defensively, which is if you're a team that's not getting all your firepower on offense, you want to be holding teams to field goals
Yeah.
at every juncture you can. So
Yeah.
I think Green Bay is going to be a team that's going to cash in, and I think they win this game by a touchdown.
Yeah. I mean, and this is a bold take here, being sarcastic, but the team that I think wins the turnover differential will win this game.
Yeah.
I think it's just whoever, and that's where it's a little scary because I feel like CJ Stroud does a really good job of that. It's going to be a hard game for both teams to win this, but whoever comes out with this is looking really pretty in their respective schedule. Dolphins, Colts. Indianapolis has been like the team that like we pretty much know they're not good, but if they win this game, like they'll be 4-3 in
Yeah.
a conference that's not that great. Uh, I'll ask you this hypothetical question because Joe Flacco the last 2 weeks has been pretty good, right? Like really good against Jacksonville. Nearly came back and won the game for him.
Yeah.
Did his job last week, won the game in Tennessee. If they win this game, which I think they should, because Miami's one of the worst teams in the NFL right now. If you look, their defense isn't that good. Their offense has been horrendous without Tua. I think their offense actually was kind of horrendous with Tua, but it was so early in the year that no one really noticed yet. What does Indianapolis do at quarterback? Like when Anthony Richardson is actually healthy?
I
Because
think
if
it's the same question that, well, like Cleveland was kind of thinking about last year. Obviously, Watson was injured, so they couldn't go
Flacco's
back
making it
to him.
hard. Because how do you tell the players in that locker room, like, hey, we got to go back to Richardson because we drafted him 4th overall, even though he's not good?
Yeah,
And
it's being stuck between a rock and a hard place, really.
yeah,
Um,
and I mean I get it because the Colts, they beat the Bears. That's turning out to be a good win. The Steelers was a good win, but I'll say this, like this tight. I mean this the I think was it the Steelers games where Richardson got hurt and Flacco led that win. So Flacco's played well the last 3 weeks. So my main issue, I guess, is like if he beats the Dolphins here, you're 4-3, you're back in the hunt for pretty much everything but you probably won't win the AFC South, but you're probably right in there in the mix for a wild card.
Yeah.
I would
It's his job until he loses it then, I
he
feel like.
might I think Anthony Richardson might be in the same boat Bryce Young's in.
Yeah.
Like,
Or Will Levis.
but at least for Bryce Young's case, like if I were to say Bryce Young should play again for the Panthers, it's because the Panthers are going to be out of contention.
Mm-hmm.
Like the
Yeah,
Colts have
those are two different situations.
the Colts have a case to start Flacco because he's putting them in contention to win games, and that's ultimately what like teams should care about, right? Like you want to go out and try and win. In this game, though, I'm definitely taking the Colts. I'm taking them comfortably here, 24-10.
So just looking at Miami's defense, I think the Colts do win this game too, but Miami's defense is a lot better than we give them credit for. They're actually the best third down defense in football right now.
Really?
And they allow the least amount of plays per drive.
They did lose Jalen Phillips for the season, though.
They did, yes. That was a big loss.
Yeah.
Actually, I forgot about that.
They've had a lot of injuries.
So their defense is actually doing, I think, a little bit more than we thought, but their offense is so terrible that you can't expect them to do anything. They got past New England because it was New England.
Yeah.
So I do think the Colts win it, but I think it'll be maybe 20-13. I think they just
if Miami can win this game, then the conversation about that team changes too, because then like you can see the light at the end of the tunnel a little bit, like because Tua theoretically should be back maybe by the end of October or early November, you would think, right? So that conversation starts happening, right?
Yeah.
If you're 3-3, like, and the AFC's wide open. So in terms of wild card spots, neither team, like, even if Tua comes back, this team's not winning the AFC, but they're certainly back in the mix to try and get like a 5, 6.
Yeah,
7.
it makes their season way more interesting.
Yeah, and that's what I think we should be hoping for. We want more teams in the mix.
Yes.
Because
you don't want a playoffs starting to shape itself out.
We get it. The AFC's top heavy. It's really the Chiefs and the Ravens right now. Maybe Buffalo. We'll see.
But make December more interesting.
And we should say the Texans, because I mean, even though they're not winning by a lot, they're still, they're winning games. So they should be. But like, we get those 4 teams, but like, I want some other teams like that could be like interesting. It can maybe like upset the other 4, right?
Yeah.
Cincinnati's obviously one that we want to see get back in, but I would love like whoever wins this game. Like if the Colts win this game, I want to see Flacco starting the rest of the season. If Miami can get through with the win, I want to see Tua come back as quickly as possible, assuming he's healthy, right? So this is the best game of the week. Lions, Vikings. So I think this is where I've been big on Minnesota. The last 4 games they've played, I think they're absolutely a for real team. However, I don't think they're the best team in this game. I think Detroit's the best team in the NFL right now, and I think they're going to go into Minnesota and show everyone like last week wasn't a fluke. The last 6 weeks haven't been a fluke.
Last year wasn't a fluke.
I think Detroit's going to make a statement. I hate it because I don't like Detroit, but I love Dan Campbell. I like what Jared Goff's doing. They're doing everything the right way. The Aiden Hutchinson injury is bad for them, but I think they have so many other pieces, and their culture is just so strong. I'm so impressed with them. Like they're a joy to watch. I'm going to take Minnesota here, or not Minnesota, the Detroit 28-24 in a really fun game.
Yeah, I'm pretty close. I'm actually also taking Detroit 30-27. I know I picked against the Vikings almost all but 1 week this year, so I might be wrong again.
It's the Sam Darnold effect because we've been selling Sam Darnold short, and he's been proving us wrong.
You're waiting for him to turn into a pumpkin, and he just hasn't yet. But
he started to in that Jets game, though.
He did, yes. So you do kind of wonder, is it almost midnight yet? But they're still 5-0. Credit to them. But with the Lions in general, you do wonder I do think they still win this week, of course. But as the season goes on, how does the Aiden Hutchinson injury and I love it. Like, so I'm not saying this is, oh, this is good because, we want the Vikings to lose or not the Vikings, the Lions to lose. Never Aiden Hutchinson as a Michigan fan will always, always have a special place in my heart. I love that guy. I think he is just an awesome competitor, and
Mm-hmm.
it's so cool to see him turn into a monster. He was going to win Defensive Player of the Year this year. It was a runaway for him, I think. But you do wonder now, like Marcus Davenport got hurt earlier in the year. Like he was their pass rush. Um, Now their defensive line is just kind of a bunch of guys right
Yeah.
now. I know John Kaminsky is pretty good, but a lot of those guys were better because they had Aiden Hutchinson getting double teams and eating up blocks and just wrecking havoc. You wonder how their pass defense will be affected. Like their secondary, that was obviously a weak point for that team, but Aiden Hutchinson put pressure on the quarterback. He gave them extra opportunities. So when you think about it, as somebody said, if their defense has to be on the field for a few extra plays, it doesn't sound like a lot, but it could be. Instead of a sack, strip, fumble, if a team turns that drive into a touchdown now, then the offense isn't on the field as it could be
It
a snowball
compounds on
effect.
itself. Yeah.
It could compound on itself. So it'll be
Avalanche.
interesting to see how Detroit, not so much their offense, because I think their offense will keep scoring. But their offense might now need to be in more, shootout mode at this
Yeah,
point.
and the other argument to make too is like, are they getting less short fields
Yes.
and things like that? Like, because their defense has been so productive at getting 3 and outs or producing. As their defense has improved so much, can that
Yeah.
continue this year?
Yeah.
Because Aaron Glenn was pretty heavily criticized last year that the Lions defense wasn't really great last year. They scored a bunch of points, and that's what kept them in all games because offense, we understand, is very important winning games. But like the difference where they lost the NFC Championship, where like they struggled against like Green Bay, for example, like a lot of teams with better quarterbacks, better passing games were able to move the ball on them because of that. They've had a very strong defense this year. The only time it didn't really even the Tampa game, they kind of shut Tampa's offense down.
Yeah.
That was a weird game. They just never had the ball. No, they had the ball forever. Like Tampa didn't have it, but somehow managed 3 touchdowns and won. I think, like you said, I think it's mainly can their defense keep making the big play to let the Lions kind of win in like an avalanche way of like good things kind of compound and they just use momentum to just kind of suffocate you, right?
Yes.
And then like you feel it really in the third quarter, like when David Montgomery and like the run game just really start just destroying you, right? Does all of that like start to happen as quickly and if it doesn't happen so quickly, then Minnesota starts feeling themselves a little bit. Maybe they stay again.
Yes.
I'm still gonna pick Detroit because I think they're the best team.
Mm-hmm.
But it's gonna be. I'm so excited to watch this game.
Yeah, I can't wait for this one.
It's too bad it's at 1:00. So because it's with all the
I
other.
know it should have really got flexed.
Yeah. Eagles Giants. I'll say this. I think the Eagles win this game if Neighbors is out. If Neighbors is in,
closes his mouth.
I think if Neighbors plays, I think the Giants win.
Yeah.
I think it's that close. I think what the Giants are missing offensively is that. I think they're missing a guy that they can go to. So Wandale's really good at like getting the 3rd and 4s, right? Like when it's 3rd and short, you're good to go. You got Wandale for 5-6 yards. They have no other reliable pass catcher in their offense. They actually moved the ball pretty decently the last few weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, I even think they moved the ball okay against Cincinnati. They just couldn't get in the red zone every time. They screwed it up. It just felt like pulling teeth when they get down there. I'm going to take I think Neighbors is going to play, so I'm going to take the Giants in an upset, 24-20.
Yeah, I
No,
kind of also
I'm
think
going to
the
go lower than
Giants
that,
win.
19-17.
I
That's
kind
what
of
I'm
also think the Giants win this one too.
if Neighbors plays, I'm going to pick the Eagles if he
I
does.
think they're coached better.
Oh yeah, Dable is doing a lot with not a lot.
Yes, and I think that's the difference in this game. I'm going to take the Giants 23-17, we'll say.
If you want to watch one of the most frustrating teams last week, watch the Eagles win against the Browns. It was not good. It was just they're stuck in the mud, and it's amazing the amount of talent they have on that team. They just can't they can't.
The Eagles seem like they're going to be a team that's perennially around 500 this year.
And I'm surprised that Sirianni's made it. Howie Roseman, everybody loves him on Twitter. He does put a good roster together. I'll give you that. But he has to be sitting there if thinking, what if I gave this team to Belichick?
Yeah.
The amount of talent is insane on that team.
Yeah.
It's unreal. At how ugly their football has been. And they only won last week simply because the Browns were worse.
Yeah.
And they still found a way to nearly give the game up.
Mm-hmm. Just about.
Yep. Raiders, Rams. Okay, so the Raiders are one of the worst teams in the NFL. We pretty much know that. I think the only redeeming quality on their entire offense has been Brock Bowers, but that's clearly not enough to really move a game.
He's going to be their entire offense now.
The Steelers still were able to move the ball on them. The Steelers, in my opinion, don't have a great offense. It tells you something that you win a game by 18 and they're considering benching you.
Yeah.
That should tell you what they think of the Raiders in terms of the Steelers starting quarterback situation. I'm taking the Rams here, and I think this might be, I'm not going to say the biggest blowout of the weekend, but it's going to be that typical 4-5 game that feels over in the second quarter. I think the Rams come out big. They know this game is so important to their season.
Yeah, I think the Rams get themselves back on track. We talked about them. I think we talked about them last week when we were talking about the NFC West, that they seem like they're 1-4, but they seem so close to not being 1-4. They've been in a lot of games this year. They had the ball.
Could have won Green Bay. Could have won Detroit.
Yeah, they could have beat the Bears. I as we both mentioned back in the summertime when we were talking about their season, the biggest part of their schedule was the beginning part. So they did kind of screw the pooch there because, they're going to be behind the Bears, Packers, and Lions for any tiebreaker at this point. But I think they get this week. I think they get it going a little bit this week. I'm going to take the Rams 30-17.
Okay. Yeah, and I think I didn't give my score, did I?
You thought it would be the second biggest blowout. So what are you thinking?
I'm thinking I think the Rams put up some points. Cup's coming back too. That's promising.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go 31-10. So I think I had I think I might be tied with the Titans Bills game. I think it's gonna be something like that. I think they just need this game badly, and I think McVay is too good of a coach to let this one slip. Panthers, Commanders. I'm going to keep it short here. Jaden Daniels, absolutely fantastic in a loss against the Ravens. Big test. I think he aced it. I mean, they didn't win the game, but that wasn't because of him. That's just because Lamar and Derrick Henry are just better right now, which is not an insult to him. I think this should be a big win again for the Commanders. I think they're going to take command of the NFC East in this game.
Nice pun.
Yes.
No, yeah, I think Washington wins this one pretty easily. I think they'll win it.
I'm going to go 27-10.
I'll go 34-14.
Okay, that's pretty
a couple of blowouts. I think Jaden Daniels is playing out of his mind. One of the things though I do It will be interesting if there is a team that knows how to contain him, because that'll be now
Not
nobody
going to
has.
be Carolina.
It's not going to be Carolina. It's definitely not going to happen this week. But
Who's
that
on
is
their
the one
Let me
thing.
look. Their schedule's so easy. Like
They
I
play
looked
the
at it the
Bears
other
the week
day.
after.
Yeah, the Commanders' schedule, because I went through it. Like I have them winning probably 11, 12 games this year. Like Chicago could be the team that slows them down because I like y'all's defense. But then they get Panthers,
You
Bears
need
at home,
linebackers very, very athletic. And
at the Giants, Steelers, at
the
Eagles.
Giants could give him troubles with Kayvon and Brian Burns.
I'm telling you, dude, though, like just from what I've seen with Daniels, he's an athletic quarterback, but like he's like imagine Justin Fields' athleticism with like actual precision and timing.
Yeah, no, his accuracy is very good. His scrambling rate is so high right now.
Yeah.
Is
Well, it's the
all
most efficient play in football.
Yes, it's the most efficient play, but eventually there's going to be a team that is going to hopefully he doesn't take a bad hit or anything like that.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Like the whole season changes if he takes the wrong hit at the wrong time, right?
Yeah.
But I like if you look at their schedule, it's very manageable.
Yes, he should coast for a while.
Yeah. Next game. Oh, I gave my score in this one. So Chiefs 49ers.
Isn't it crazy we have a Super Bowl rematch and it's not one of the top 2 games of the weekend?
Yeah, I was thinking about that, and like this is pretty much an island game. Like even though there are late window games, I think like Commanders Panthers is like a 4:25 game. But I think that's correct. No, that's a 4 or 5. I think this is the only 4:25. So they technically made this an island.
Yeah.
Which it should be. It's a Super Bowl rematch. And the 49ers need this game. And they played like they needed it last week. But I don't know how much that mattered. This is a tough game because I do like the Niners. I think
I do too. I think this is a game they win.
I'm gonna agree with you. I think the Chiefs finally drop a game, and I think what's gonna come back and get the Chiefs, I think it's just the amount of injuries they have had on the offensive side of the ball. I think you're gonna have to score some points in this game. I think San Francisco is gonna be able to put it up on Kansas City. So I'm going
San Fran 27-23.
I'll say 28-24, effectively the same thing.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those where Mahomes has the ball and they just don't score a touchdown. Think of the Green Bay game last year where Kansas City went to Lambeau. I feel like it'll be that kind of game. Sunday night game.
Game of the week.
Dude, I'll tell you this. Like, the Steelers, they're like a team that when I see they're on, I make this face like, I don't know why. Like, I don't really hate anybody on the Steelers or anything. It's just like the brand of football that they play. I think a lot of it too is like it's actually like I admire the way they play, but it's like every time I see them, it's like when they're playing garbage quarterbacks or like teams that are discombobulated, like the Raiders. Like I watched that game because I had so much fantasy games riding on that game. And I'm just like, this is awful football. Like watching Aiden O'Connell play this team was awful. And I think the Steelers are going to frustrate the hell out of the Jets this week. As skilled as Rodgers is, this is not a team that, if a team lacks chemistry, this is not a defense I want to play against.
Yeah, right.
And they're for real. I'm taking the Steelers. I'm taking them 17-14. It's going to be that kind of game.
Yeah, that's pretty close to it. I'll change mine.
I talked enough about the Jets.
I'll take Pittsburgh 22-14. Kind of a weird score. No, the Steelers. Obviously, they benched. Did you ever notice that the diamonds in the Steelers logo, they kind of make a little football?
Oh, yeah.
But anyways, No, they benched Justin Fields. Apparently, they've benched him this week. We probably won't know 100% for sure until Friday. All we know is Russ is taking first team snaps again. So that basically means he is benched. It was inevitable because Fields, as much as the Fields truthers love to point out, like his play is just not sustainable in terms of winning. And I think the Steelers, I really think this is what they thought. We could probably keep winning with Fields. Maybe. We could keep beating the teams we're supposed to beat with Fields. He's probably going to keep playing this way. He's probably not going to get any better. It took them 6 games to figure out this. It took the Bears 3 years. Maybe the Bears figured it out earlier. I kind of think they did know earlier, but they said if we keep playing him, we're just going to end up giving up a 4th round pick. Whereas if we play Russell and he does something similar, we don't have to give up a 4th round pick.
They're the same player. Like in terms of like EPA added.
Yes.
Or I guess EPA like expected points
they
added.
Do a little bit differently. But yeah, essentially they're adding the same value to the team.
Just don't screw up the game.
Yeah.
Keep us in it. And I will say the one thing that I kind of like this fit. Russ is a quarterback. He
is a quarterback.
Yes, thank you. But Russ is a quarterback that I've always felt if you keep a game low scoring and close, he is a guy that can make a throw at the end of a game.
Yeah.
Like he did that all the time in Seattle. Like the patented Seahawks like game was always it's 19-14. And the Seahawks have the ball. And there's a minute 30 left. And Russell Wilson throws like a moon ball and David Moore catches it for a touchdown and Quest Field's going crazy and Pete Carroll's going like
running down.
And it's always against a team that like sucks. It's like they're playing the Bucks from the early 2010s. And it's like you just see Josh Freeman over there like shit, man. Like and the crowd's going crazy. Like that's a Russell Wilson game. And like his final stat line early in the Seahawk days was actually like 19 of 24 for 180 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like, and that was it. Like, it wasn't an impressive passing line. And then Russ started becoming like let Russ cook, where he would have these monster passing performances. But the best Seahawks teams were actually where he was doing what I think he's about to get asked to do.
Yeah,
in Pittsburgh. The thing that he's missing, what he had,
let them play defense.
Yeah, what he had 10 years ago is he could run for first downs. I don't think that's going to happen as much anymore. I think the athleticism is really gone there. But in a close, low scoring game, I do actually like the script Russell Wilson can maybe give a team. He just can't get himself into sacks and turn the ball over like he did in Denver.
Yeah.
Another great game. Like this
is
a Monday night game. This is going to be the Monday night game.
There's a doubleheader.
Well, the other one's on ESPN Plus, so we're basically not going to watch that one. But Ravens, Bucks, Tampa, like offensively, one of the most impressive teams in the last 2 weeks. And I would say the Ravens are the most impressive team offensively in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be the highest scoring game of the weekend. I'm going to say the Ravens. I'm starting to think that they might be the best team in the NFL outside of the Lions. I think the best team in the AFC right now. Lamar's actually playing better than he did last year when he won the MVP.
Yeah.
And Derrick Henry's on pace for like 2,200 rushing yards, which is just insane.
Jamal Lewis 2.0.
Yeah, that we actually were going to do that as a topic, and then the Brady thing came up. We can bring it up next week, assuming Henry goes off.
He probably does something similar.
Yeah. And Tampa does give up some points.
Yes.
I think both teams are going to score a lot. I love both offenses here. Can see either side winning this, but I'm going to say Baltimore 38-34 in another shootout.
I'm going to take Baltimore 31-26. Now that this is a really intriguing game. Excited to watch it. But I think when it comes down to it in the end, if we're comparing quarterbacks, I'll take Lamar over Baker in that way. And so I think that'll be the difference.
And the last game we have on the docket, Chargers, Cardinals. I think Arizona's probably playing for their season. This is one of the most hot and cold teams. I just can't like. I
Yeah,
want to
when I
like
texted
Arizona.
you on Sunday, it looks like the bad Cardinals showed up.
Yeah, I want to see. I want to like the Cardinals. Like last year, I defended Gannon. I thought he was coaching well above what he was expected to do. I've been a Kyler defender, but like they are so hot and cold that like
Yeah.
they played like crap last week in Green Bay. Like they just didn't show up. This is not a team that you need. You got to bring your A game
Yes.
against the Chargers because I would say the one thing you can say about LA is that they're one of the best coach teams in the sport. With Harbaugh, I'm taking the Chargers 20-16, another low scoring game. I think this is going to be like the Chargers like national kind of coming out party
Yeah.
to where it's like this is Harbaugh.
Harbaugh's first time on national TV, I think. Would it be?
Well, yeah, and it's technically national TV, but it's streaming only.
Yeah,
So,
right.
but like Jim Harbaugh kind of makes a statement in an island game.
Yeah, I'm also gonna take the Chargers. I think they'll win it 27-19. Yeah, they're a strong team. That defense is looking really good again this year after a down year last year. So I think Arizona, just when you think that, after beating San Francisco, they might be ready to fire drive their season, they didn't. They didn't even show up, as you said. So I definitely think the Chargers